Welcome to the Westport Library. Today's program will begin momentarily. Supported by Verso Studios, created locally and shared with the world.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Westport Library, the state's only five-star library. It's always a pleasure to be here with you all. I just wanted to extend a very quick welcome to each of you, and also it's always a pleasure to host Governor Ned Lamont. Governor, thank you for your leadership in our great state of Connecticut, and I really look forward to today's conversation. Governor, thank you for being here. But I will turn it over to Matthew Mandell, the Executive Director of the Weston Chamber of Commerce, to more formally introduce the Governor and today's program. So again, thank you for coming, and Governor, thank you.
Good morning, and welcome to the fourth version of Your State, Your Business. We started this just early March with the Comptroller, the Secretary of the State, and then the Attorney General. And today we have the Governor speaking with the business community as well as the residents. I want to thank the library for hosting us all four of these times, and especially for today. Executive Director Bill Harmer has been a big supporter of the Chamber, and we in turn support the library. And I want to thank the production staff for putting this all together over the last week, month and a half. I'd like to recognize Representative Jonathan Steinberg, who's here, and also Lucy Dathan, representative from New Canaan, yes. So thank you for coming. Ned Lamont is the 89th governor of Connecticut, first elected in 2018 and re-elected in 2022. A longtime businessman and public servant, he has focused his administration on fiscal stability, economic growth, and improving affordability for Connecticut residents. Before entering public office, Mr. Lamont built a successful career in the telecommunications industry, founding Campus Televideo, a company that provided cable and internet services for over 400 college campuses across the country. His private sector experience has informed his approach to governing, with an emphasis on innovation, efficiency, and job creation. As governor, he worked to strengthen Connecticut's financial position, pay down long-term pension liabilities, and invest in infrastructure, education, and workforce development. His administration has also prioritized expanding access to early childhood education, supporting small businesses, and advancing clean energy initiatives. A graduate of Harvard College and the Yale School of Management, Governor Lamont lives in Greenwich with his wife Annie, and they have 3 children. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor of State of Connecticut, Ned Lamont.
Hey, thanks, Matt. And 3 children, 1 grandchild named Finnegan, who's almost 2 years old, and a little girl on the way. And if any of you are golfers, we decided yesterday evening at about 7 o'clock, we thought Rory was a pretty good name for her. I love seeing the music class filing out of here, because one of the last times I was here, we awarded the key to the state to a musician named Keith Richards, and who lives in Weston, by the way, and got him here to the Westport Public Library, and a lot of old hippies with not much up top but a long ponytail were there to greet him as he arrived, and he's a man of few words, a lot of trepidation. Come up, here's Keith Richards, and essentially he says, "Thank you, mate, don't burn the books." So, and you've got a great first selectman here in Kevin. As Matt mentioned, we both come out of the private sector, little unique. More and more of our mayors have that background. Not so many governors. I'm really one of the first. Doesn't mean you don't have your strong values, but you also pay attention to how to get stuff done. And Matt knows how to get stuff done. I was just kidding on the way here, because one of the balances we always try and get in the state of Connecticut is between housing and modernizing our infrastructure and maintaining the certain, character of our communities. And I was saying, Matt, it's fascinating because you take the lead on historic preservation, you take the lead on preserving open space, and you take the lead on housing and getting that balance right. And that's sort of what we're trying to do here in the state of Connecticut as well. Do everything we can to preserve open space. We've preserved thousands and thousands of acres across the state because they're not making any more of it. We're a pretty dense state. That doesn't mean we're not very bright. It means that we have a lot of people per acre. And we got to work very hard to make sure we know what this state's going to look like in 10 years. And also make sure it's a state where, our kids can afford to, start a family and start a life. And that's the balance we're trying to take care of. I'd love to talk about that a little more. We're just talking about the bridge, and dates back to Chester A. Arthur and 1885. What's it called again? Yeah. And just how do you get that balance right between a modern bridge that takes care of the infrastructure needs, not just for today, but for the next 80 years, yet make sure it's not a way that's going to really change the lifestyle here, talking about some of the tractor trailer trucks and others that could be routed depending on how we get that balance right. So I've got that loud and clear. Let me just tell you briefly how the state's doing, then I'd really love to take your questions. And with Lucy and Jonathan, you've got a really good team fighting for you every day up in Hartford. They're very pushy and persuasive, and make a real difference in terms of what we're doing for the kids and what we're doing for open space and bringing down the price of energy and making sure we have a clean energy future. Basically, I wouldn't trade places with most other states right now, but it's incredibly complicated. We've been able to, remember we went from deficit to deficit to deficit, and companies were leaving the state, and GE left, and last one out, turn out the lights. The young people are all moving down to Boston and New York, and we've tried to change that trajectory. We've had, this will be 8 balanced budgets in a row. 8 balanced budgets. It's not easy. We set aside some reserves. We call it a rainy day fund in case we invade any more countries and price of everything goes up and you end up with a bad recession. I want to make sure we don't go through what we go through usually, which is cutting funding for schools and cities and raising taxes. We've got, almost $4.5 billion set aside to make sure that won't happen, again. And we've also, you maybe remember the pension was just eating us alive, and nobody had saved for the pension going back 50 years. Today, our pension was 35% funded 8 years ago. Now it's about 65% funded. I know that's sort of a complicated concept, but it means we're getting our act together. And it means that it no longer is eating up more and more of our budget. So we're making pretty good progress there, but it's tricky. Every week or so, get another incoming from the White House. And, I was there the first time around with President Trump, and he didn't get that involved in state government. He had some tweets and, couldn't spell COVID, but it wasn't really that impactful for us. We were able to manage ourselves. This time it's a little trickier because all the time there's another change. The one that maybe got a lot of prominence was something called Revolution Wind. Revolution Wind is the offshore wind turbines that were 80% installed, enough power to power up about 350,000 homes. You want to bring down the price of electricity, you can ask Jonathan this, we need more generation. This was good, affordable, 10 cents a kilowatt hour, probably half the price of what we're paying for natural gas right now because natural gas is spiking. And so we're ready to go. And then the president shut it down right before Labor Day, laying off about 1,000 people. Thanks, happy Labor Day. And we got it back going again, won a lawsuit. I said, you better build fast, guys. And they were building, then right before Christmas, they shut it down a second time. We won the case. Now it's beginning to generate power, beginning to make some progress there. And more broadly on energy, I'd love your point of view on this, because it's tough for us to create new generation in this state. We can't, I'm not Texas or Wyoming. I can't stick a straw in the ground and out comes natural gas. But nuclear power is something that we are continuing to think about. Millstone provides almost 50% of our power. And right now, because the high price of natural gas, we're making a lot of money on the nuclear power trade. So you'll see the notorious public benefits charge, if you heard that, go down quite a bit starting in about 3 months because of the money we're able to make out of the nuclear power. I think I can tell you that more broadly, I like where the state is right now. We've added more new businesses, small businesses, more new startups. We are one of the fastest growing states in the country right now. That wasn't true 10 years ago. So I'd like to think it's a place where you want to stay and your kids want to be, and new businesses will continue to want to be here and start and expand and grow. That's why we're making the biggest down payment on infrastructure. That's roads, that's bridges, that's a rail. You know, you'll be able to get rail from here to New York City, Grand Central, as well as Penn Station over the next 6 or 7 years, probably saving you 10 or 15 minutes. That's the nature of what the rebuilding is going on. And that said, we're also doing some new housing. But I want to be clear about something. We call it towns take the lead. Westport, Kevin, there you are. You tell us where you want that housing to go. We'll be there as your partner. Nobody's mandating anything, but you be there. We'll be there with sewer, water, school, brownfield remediation. We're there as your partner to make sure you determine what you want Westport to look like over the next 10, 20 years. And last thing, and then I'll just go, in terms of big priorities going forward over the next 4 years, we're just getting started on universal early childhood education. That's why I ran over to see those kids, because they already have a head start here at the Westport Public Library. We're going to make it at no cost to all families earning up to about $100,000 and $125,000. We ought to be able to get there for pre-K by next year. I know what that means for families. When you talk about affordability, you got 1 or 2 kids, under the age of 5, can save them $15,000 a year. I know what that means for children. Every kindergarten teacher tells me, I can tell that kid that came from a really good pre-K program. I want this to be the most family-friendly state in the country where people want to be and young families want to start right here. And probably the biggest problem I've got to deal with right now is healthcare costs. They're going up double digits all across the country. And it's impacting our budget, our Medicaid budget. It's impacting your budget. It's impacting your school board budget, impacting small businesses. And there I'll be working really hard because we're a relatively small state. We got great hospitals. We have the insurance industry, insurance capital of the world. And we can get this fixed. Some of our hospitals cost twice as much as other hospitals to go to get your hip done. And we're trying to steer people where you get the very best value in life. And that'll be a way that we can hold down costs for people and make sure we bend the curve on health care, just like we've done for pensions. So that's all the serious stuff. I'd love to hear your questions, hear what's going on. And I love being back in Westport. It's where I met my wife, so I kind of like this place.
All right. Thanks so much for being here. It's not often that the governor can sit with a community and have them ask questions, talk to them. You being open about this, it's great. So thank you so much for coming. You spoke about a lot of the things that I figured we would be talking about: energy, healthcare, federal cuts. Why don't we stay with energy for a little bit? Energy costs remain a top concern, both for residents and businesses. What steps are your administration taking to make it more predictable and more affordable for public utility rates? There was a New York Times article recently where you're saying we need to rethink our alternate energies because this winter was a little tough. Snow covered the solar panels. The wind died down during this. So tell us a little bit more about where you want to go with taking care of energy.
So electric prices in particular, our gas is about average compared to the rest of the country, but our electric prices, Matt, are high. They've been high for the last 30, 50, 70 years. Like I said, we're at the end of a lot of the supply chain when it comes to natural gas. We don't have hundreds of acres of fields to put up solar power. Believe it or not, we're buying solar power from Maine, foggy Maine. Who would have thunk it? But they have hundreds of acres to put up big commercial farms there. I think I mentioned Revolution Wind, what we're doing there. When I first came into office, a lot of states were unplugging nuclear power and plugging in data centers. We did just the opposite. We extended our agreement with Millstone, as I said before. These data centers, that one data center they wanted to put in the Millstone would have used as much electricity as most of Lower Fairfield County on a regular basis. So we're trying, the first thing you do is do no harm, making a big emphasis upon energy efficiency and energy conservation. That has a pretty good payback. We're providing some incentives there. So for your home, you can save you $100 or $200 a month. And by the way, that's $100 or $200 in kilowatts that are not creating new demand on our grid. So we're dealing with supply and we're dealing with demand. And like I said, when it comes to the public benefits charge, that should go down quite a bit. And I think I won't use all that money just so we can stabilize prices. If the price of natural gas goes down again in a year, I don't want there to be a price shock. So we're trying to put a little bit of money in reserve.
Well, on public benefits, that money goes to creating alternate energy sources or finding, researching?
Here's the much ballyhooed public benefits charge. Number one, it helps pay for our nuclear power. Two, as you point out, solar and wind are paid for out of public benefits. It's called the Power Purchase Agreement. Number three, it pays for energy efficiency, as I described before. And number four, this gets some people a little edgy. It pays for people who aren't able to pay their electric bills. And there were a lot of them during COVID just because people weren't working and they were desperate. You can't pull the plug on those folks. So we got that out of the public benefits. We're going to bond that, do that over a longer period of time. But those are the four main components, and we're looking at that every day. But the biggest piece of the cost of our electric bills is generation, how we get the electricity, and distribution done by Eversource and UI.
All right, thank you. Let's talk about what's going on the federal government in terms of money that comes to the state. There are some estimates that $1 billion is being lost by the state by what the federal government is doing. How are we compensating for that, and how can we continue to take care of the benefits that we offer our citizens?
It's a little herky-jerky, helter-skelter coming out of Washington. First, they wanted to pull the funding authorized by Congress. We have long-term agreements, based on our congressional agreement for infant formula for kids. We said we've got that backed up. Then it was SNAP benefits. I don't know if you heard about them. That's the band formerly known as food stamps. And a lot of folks have a very thin margin for error. When they were going to pull the plug on SNAP benefits, we had bread lines. It was like FDR, people lined up. Again, the president pulled back on that and said 80% of the people will continue to get their food support, and we made up the difference. Then it was subsidies on the healthcare exchange. You remember hearing about that? That was going to cost you $1,000 or $2,000 a month. And I heard from a lot of moms saying, I've got a child. I won't be able to take care of my child. We were able to step up and backfill that, but I can't do this forever. These are big pieces of change. Right now, as I think I alluded to, the big, beautiful bill, if it gets enacted as proposed, will take $1 billion out of Medicaid, $1 billion out of our Medicaid budget. That's 20% of our overall federal funding. That would be tens of thousands of people losing their health insurance. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's the sort of turbulence we're trying to deal with every day. And it's no easier for the business community. When your tariffs are on, tariffs are off, tariffs are on, they invest, they don't invest, they invest. We need a little steady. I know we're the land of steady habits. I think Washington could use little steady habits.
Thank you. You mentioned healthcare costs, both in your speech and just now. Controller Scanlon was down here in early March and promoting the concept of more businesses being able to join our medical coverage, where he says, I run the largest medical insurance group anywhere. And so you think that's a possibility that we could expand that and allow the businesses to get more involved in that to save money?
I really think it is. Small businesses in small towns have absolutely no purchasing power, so they pay the very highest prices. If they're part of a bigger pool, like Controller Sean Scanlon was talking about, we have more purchasing power. We can bring down costs a little bit. But the one difference I have with some of my friends in the legislature, they say, I want the Connecticut taxpayers to backfill all this. And if something goes wrong, I want Connecticut to guarantee it. I just don't think that's a really good idea. I think we have some of the best insurance in the company here. We're going to create this network that brings down costs and then have the insurance companies take the risk, not us.
Okay, sounds good. Let's go to affordability. Affordability is not just housing. Energy we already talked about, food prices. What is your administration doing to address more than the housing and the energy costs to help citizens, businesses out?
Well, everybody talks about tax cuts. We cut taxes. I didn't cut taxes for the highest income people, but we had a $400 million tax cut, the biggest income tax cut in state history for people earning less than about $200,000. We eliminated the income tax for working families. So we've made our tax code much more progressive and make life just a little more affordable. Child care, that's going to save young families a heck of a lot of dough. I think I said in terms of how we're trying to bend the curve on health care and housing. You want to know what the three biggest drivers of inflation are in cost? It's health care, it's energy, and that's what we're trying to deal with every day going forward and make a difference there. You know, it's not easy. The price of gasoline just went up well over $1 a gallon. You're 15 gallons a week, do the math, $60 a month. These things are really hitting hard, and it's going to take a while to get through our system. We set aside, working with the legislature, $500 million for relief, and that could be anywhere from a rebate check to help people pay those bills in the near term, to perhaps a little more education funding to help your school budgets and help your property tax. I'll be working that out with the legislature over the next month.
Okay. In terms of businesses, this is the Chamber of Commerce, so let's focus a little more on business. Are there any specific targeted tax relief measures that you believe should be implemented to aid small businesses? And are you working towards that, or is the legislature working towards that?
The most important thing I think we're doing for small business is workforce. We've made an enormous investment there, workforce development. Every business talking about expanding or moving here asks me the same question. It's less likely to be about taxes and labor, which is what we sometimes think it's going to be, is will I have the workforce to be able to do the 21st century jobs, and will there be a place to live? So I think, as you pointed out, Matt, we've doubled down on that. Every single business, tell us what your job needs are going to be. And we're in pretty good shape. It's easy to do workforce for Electric Boat. They're the guys that make the submarines, because they tell us they need 150 laser welders, so I can train for that. The smaller companies, we have to work on hard. We're going to do that with apprentice programs, which we pay for, and also do that with certificate programs, so we can get the trained force that you need. We've cut taxes modest ways, the research R&D tax credit, helping out all of our small businesses, reduced a lot of those nuisance fees that used to drive people crazy. So I think as the first governor to come out of business like virtually forever in this state, I know that small business is a cash flow business, and every day those costs can impact you. Anything I can do to reduce those needs will make a big difference. And so far, it's working. So far, we've created more new businesses than we have in many a year.
Right. The economy is doing well.
And those businesses, by the way, are often started up, more often than not, by women and people of color. I mean, it's a lot of small businesses right in downtown that hopefully some will grow to something big.
Mm-hmm. Are there any sort of streamlining of regulations that you have in mind that may also help the fostering of these small businesses?
Yeah, one thing you hear all the time is government has a bad case of the slows. And we've got a concierge service. You go to economic community development, there's one person you talk to. So whether it's workforce, whether it's environmental, whether it's just what are the other incentives out there, there's one person. We help you navigate through that as best we can. I heard some guy gave me sort of a backhanded compliment. I don't know how you take this, but he was a real estate guy, and we're building some housing in West Hartford, and he said, you know, I didn't get as much money from Lamont as I would have from his predecessor, but I got it a lot faster, and that was just as important. So to your point, that's what we're trying to do, stretch those dollars, get you the money when you need it.
Good, excellent. So I'm going to ask one more question, then we're going to go to the audience, and I'll ask a final question when we get done with the audience. There was a recent bill, CBIA was looking to remove electric tax on their electric bills, which, it's going to be expensive. It may not get through. But there was a piece that was added to it where 0.5% of the tax on meals would go to tourism. Do you think Connecticut is a tourist state? And how can we make it more of a tourist state to bring in more people from other states to come and spend their dollars here?
I can tell you that coming out of COVID, we kept our parks open, we kept our beaches open, we kept our golf courses open. We had more visitors to the state of Connecticut for those 2 years than ever before in the history of our state by an awful lot. And we're building on that. We've increased the funding for tourism dollars. We've raised $2 million in addition from the private sector to help promote the 250th anniversary of our country. Here in the Constitution State, I think it's particularly relevant going on. If you're doing anything unique in Westport or Weston, let us know. We'll make sure that message goes out there. But tourism is really important. Not only is it an economic driver, a lot of those people who came after COVID stayed. And a lot of people said, I kind of like what I see. I like the fact that I can live in a nice place. Maybe I have an acre or two of land. It's only a 10-minute drive into an office. I can't get that in New York City. I can't get that in Boston. This is a lot more affordable, and a lot of them stayed. And for the first time in a long time, because we're as flat as a pancake and we're losing population, we continue to gain population. A lot of it right now is international. Legal immigration, but a lot of that is international, and I hope you think that's a good thing, because I do. I love the fact that this is a state where people from all walks of life and all around the world say, this is a place I can call home.
Thank you. All right. This whole setup was so that people can come, business people, residents can come and ask questions of the governor in a very small venue where he's open to answer questions. So what we're going to do is we're going to take questions over there by the Westport Library sign and just go and ask some questions, and we'll do about 20 minutes or so. It'd be good if you lined up so we don't have to wait between the questions.
Good morning, Governor Lamont. Thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate it. I'm Kristen Schneeman, Westport resident and part of the RTM, representing District 9, where you are sitting currently. I really appreciate everything you're doing, particularly to backstop everything that's happening at the federal government level. Next to that, I think our concerns about maybe our little bridge here, the Krabari Bridge, might seem inconsequential, but they're not to us. And I know you've spoken to a few people already this morning about it, and you've been the recipient of a lot of emails from community members about it. Wanted to riff on a comment you made a minute ago, do no harm. So the states in this project, the state's preferred alternative would demolish that bridge and replace it with a bridge that would open this residential neighborhood, and neighborhoods, I should say, and a historic district to tractor-trailer traffic for the first time. State Department of Transportation just spent almost $90 million rehabilitating the East Haddam Swing Bridge, which is also a historic swing bridge, not as historic as ours, and on a state route. So can you give us some assurance that the Department of Transportation will treat ours similarly with a view towards rehabilitation, and that you won't allow Westport's neighborhoods to become a fourth lane of 95? Thank you.
Yeah, I've just become aware of this issue, but I'll work with Kevin. We'll get together with Garrett Eucalito. Garrett is the head of transportation. But I heard the issue. I mean, obviously, transportation says, if we're going to rebuild the bridge, I want to rebuild it once so it lasts another 50 years. We don't have to do this a lot. I want it to be structurally in a way that, takes care of things. I also hear from the community. I want something that has a very high ceiling and tractor-trailer trucks can barrel through and change the whole character and nature of our community. We'll work with you to get that right. I promise you that.
Thank you, Governor.
Governor, I have a couple of questions. We're one of 9 states that tax Social Security. Is there any chance of that ever going away, that tax? We pay into it all our lives, and now we're paying tax on our Social Security.
I can start with that. We eliminated the income tax on Social Security for everybody earning up to $100,000. Then, Lucy, doesn't it trend down from there a little bit? I think that's right. We haven't eliminated for everybody yet. every time I eliminate a tax, I got to figure out how to pay for the bills a different way. There's no such thing as free money out there. But I think we're trending in the right direction because I want to make sure that Westport in Connecticut is a place that you can call home and watch your kids grow up in person, not have to watch them from Zoom in Florida or something. So we're making progress on that all the time. We'll get there.
Okay. Next question is about Invest in Education. It's a national program that came out of Washington, one of the few things that's come out that's worthwhile, in my opinion anyway. But the governors in each state have to agree to it. Have you been approached on that by the folks who Invest in Education? People get a tax credit by sending their kids to a school of their choice?
Yes. Well, they haven't come up with the guidelines on that yet. So we've got another 6 months to a year to look at it. Look, I understand the concept. It makes an awful lot of sense to me. But let's see what the federal rules of the road are going to be. We ought to know that, I think, by the end of this year is my prediction. But I understand what the issue is. I'm a big believer in public education. Want to make sure. Look, the good news is Connecticut has some of the best schools in the country, bar none. And, we invest in education. We have some of the best paid teachers in the world. And anything I can do to make it a little easier on families to be able to afford education for their kids, that's something we're going to do.
And my last question is regarding Aquarion Water Company and the water service out of New Haven. Are trying to combine that. If you read the editorials, one side says A, the other side says B. I'm not sure we as a community understands exactly, except there could be a big increase in our water costs going forward with this. Where are you on this merger?
So Eversource, they sold their water company to a not-for-profit consortium. They paid a lot of money for it, so we're very worried that that premium they paid for it will be reflected in increasing water rates. Jonathan Steinberg has a really interesting bill, I think, in the legislature where maybe we can maintain some regulatory control so they can't unilaterally raise those rates. Our Attorney General William Tong is looking at this hard. He says the numbers are not right, wants PURA to take a second look at that. I don't mean to cop out, but PURA is an independent, semi-judicial group, so I can't reel away and say I hate the judges, but there'll be a second look at this, that I can tell you.
Okay, thanks, Governor.
All right, thank you. Next person.
Hi, thank you. My name is Tony Simonetti. I am a transplant Connecticut resident. I've been here 26 years from the great state of Michigan, and love Michigan, love Big Gretch. But I'm a huge fan of yours, and I do love living in Connecticut, and I hope to age in place here in Connecticut as now a retiree. I was just having a conversation with some energy geeks the other day, and I'm trying to get my head around the issue that they raised as a big state issue, which, and you touched on this a little bit, but the distribution of natural gas into Connecticut from our neighbors, and it's become a not in my backyard issue. I'm just trying to get my head around that. What are your thoughts on that? And is that a real issue, or is that just these energy geeks making stuff up? Thank you.
Well, hey, welcome from Michigan. Big upgrade. Nice going. Gretchen Whitmer's the best, but she says no woman likes to be known as Big Gretch or Big anything. And so here's the deal on natural gas. Most of our power is natural gas. Some of it comes through a pipeline out of Pennsylvania. That pipeline is at full congestion. The rest of it comes by ship, liquefied natural gas. That's sort of dirty and expensive. So we are looking at alternatives there. Is natural gas my first choice? No. I don't know what you think about this, but I'd like to see our nuclear power expanded along with solar and wind. But that said, I need some negotiating leverage, so I want to see what the cost of natural gas would be. That means I have all my chips on the table when I negotiate what we're going to do for our energy future over the next 40 years. Your bigger point is, yeah, it goes through New York. So let's say New York doesn't want it, another pipeline comes through New England. So all the New England governors are looking at this, not necessarily our first choice, but an option we ought to consider.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, follow up a little bit, Governor. So we need to expand our ability to make energy. Are we looking at holding back on data centers who gobble it all up, or make them supply their own infrastructure to generate electricity?
Yeah, if you're not going to data centers are fine. We don't lose any competitive advantage if the data centers in Northern Virginia or Connecticut. So I don't lose sleep over that. A lot of guys like to build data centers. But your point is absolutely right, Matt. If you want to build a data center here, you can't suck 10% of the electricity. We already have a demand issue right now. Come in and bring in your own power, and maybe we'll consider it.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Ron Friedson, and my family's been here about 100 years in Westport. I don't want to take people's time with a long list of things, but Governor Jonathan Steinberg can vouch for me. We had a long conversation at my house last year. But I think I speak for a lot of the business people. We'd like to be able to reach your office with somebody who actually has the authority to do more than chew gum and send back a form letter. I think that's, without doubt, the biggest frustration of business people like yourself. We expect to talk to somebody who actually has authority and has a phone number or an email, as opposed to some college kid who's up there interning who is basically, you know, very nice, but basically hopeless. Is there a specific email or person where business people like myself, and I have a whole list of things that might be helpful, that not appropriate to take everybody's time up right now, but I think that would be something we could definitely like you to pass along, to have the chamber send out to everybody and say, here's a place you can actually reach somebody who actually can read things and go, oh, yeah, this is just a crank, or this is somebody who's got something hard, and let's hold a conversation.
Yeah, two things. We'll get you that number.
Yeah, that would be great.
I think a little more highly of our state employees than you do.
Well, no, they're very sweet. I've had several conversations of various things, and they're very pleasant, but they simply don't have authority.
When I look at Department of Economic Community Development, I think we've had amazing leaders there. We had somebody who was a Goldman Sachs partner. Now we have a venture capital. We have business people there.
But you can't reach them.
In Department of Economic and Community Development, that's the Commerce Department. That's the group you should be working with when you're talking about how to expand your business or how to get...
My apologies, miscommunication. One of my businesses is affordable housing.
Oh, I see.
I know more probably than anybody in this room about it. I have 14 units in Fairfield, total of 18 doors, about 100 Section 8 tenants. And there's a lot of things we can do that will pass local zoning muster. But the point is how to get through to somebody to actually get the information high enough up the food chain that something happens in our lifetime.
I'll get Saylor, who runs our Department of Housing, to give you a call. We'll get your information.
Great, thank you.
She's the one that can take the lead.
Jonathan has my details.
Then we work through local planning and zoning, as you know.
Well, that's the point. These are things that will go past local planning and zoning.
Yeah.
Because if it won't go past local planning and zoning, we're all just, you know, talking hot air. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next person, please.
Good morning. My name is Robbie, and my father-in-law sends his regards. He sang the national anthem at your inauguration. His first name is Michael.
Oh, love it.
Yeah, so thanks for coming today. My question is kind of an overall comment and also some hope to have some open dialogue. We have two major infrastructure projects that are on our books. One is the Kabari Bridge. Good luck with that. The other one, Congressman Himes has spearheaded, which is a navigational improvement by dredging the river all the way up to the library. So my question is to you is how does your office have some oversight to make sure that those projects are congruent with each other so that one project doesn't kind of ruin the results of the other project? So to elaborate, if the river's dredged and we can't get the bridge organized, we can't get boats underneath, might as well not dredge the river. And if we dredge the river and we don't do something with, you know, if they don't work together in synergy, it's kind of a waste of substantial resources. So I'd be glad to take a card for one of your associates, because I'm cool talking to the younger folks, but how do you use your oversight to make sure that we don't have a fumble and spend all that money, close to 100 million, and not have everything work together? I'm good, thanks.
Okay, so first of all, we work hand in glove with Jim Himes, who is one of the very best congressmen in the United States of America. And he's got, you know, federal resources, and often they require state resources to match in some way. Garrett Euclidо, the guy I referred to previously, you know, takes a look at what the draft you need for a bridge. I'll tell you something blunt. Our bridges are probably have to be rebuilt 2 feet higher than they were before just because of rising sea levels. What'd you say, 4 feet? Okay, you know better than I do. So we're taking all that into account, how the dredging impacts the height of the bridge. Somebody smarter than me can answer that. But at least I can tell you they do look at that. They look at that seriously. And we can get somebody as smarter than me to give you a better answer on that.
I'd love to have a card for one of your associates at some point today. I'll come and find you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Annette and Norton, and I am a resident of Westport, but I'm also a small business owner downtown. You've actually shopped in my store a couple times, so I thank you for that. The reason for my coming up here is I am a single parent who now has a small business, and I am on Access Health, and I'm very concerned about what's coming from the White House as far as with healthcare, and I want to know what your take is as far as I'm always concerned that all of a sudden Access Health is going to either go away or become too expensive for me. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on what's going on with that.
Yeah, Ned, I was in the same place. I was small business. We had no purchasing power. Access Health and is the Obamacare exchange. And it's custom made for people who don't have any purchasing power. Maybe they're a small business, maybe they're individual, maybe they're gig workers. I think it's an invaluable service, and you take advantage of that. And you're right, the federal government tried to dramatically increase the cost on Access Health. And we've been able to step in and make up the differential through the end of this year. And then we're going to have to figure out, I hope to God, that Rosa DeLauro is going to be head of appropriations at this time next year. We won't have to figure out what the balance is between making Access Health affordable and how much we can afford to pay as a state. Most states have said, tough luck, blame Trump, you're on your own. We haven't done that, but it's a you know, these subsidies are incredibly expensive. I think I referred earlier, they want to cut another $1 billion out of Medicaid. You know, that would be a big increase for us if we had to make up the whole shortfall. You're in good shape, you know, through the end of this year, and I like to think things are going to settle out because sometimes most of the threatened cuts end up not happening. And I think this is one we're going to get a better balance. Time will tell.
Okay.
Thanks, Annette.
Thank you. Next person.
Thank you for coming today, Governor Lamont. It's wonderful to have you here in Westport, and I appreciate the comments as part of, as a leader of one of our community groups, the Westport Alliance for Saugatuck. I totally appreciate the comments about the bridge and your concern and having your eyes open. There are many different factions and many different needs, but the most important is to make sure that semi-trucks cannot traverse streets that school buses are on and small areas that could be a public danger to many, many people, especially in an area where there is projected to be more housing. That said, I want to get off that subject and also thank you for your comments about data centers, because that's another important issue to many, many people, cost of energy. And I wonder if your administration has looked at the patio solar options that Utah is now putting forward as a state, because there will be some time for them to get federal approval. But some states are moving on their own, and that's these small systems have actually saved Germany. I think it's estimated to be about 10% overall of their energy usage. So I'm wondering if the state is looking at those options.
I can tell you we're looking at all options. Solar is by far the most affordable when it's done on a commercial scale. We don't have land to do all that, but we are putting on top of parking lots, putting it on old mills. We're putting on every single school when we reconstruct, we're doing that. I'll find out a little more about this particular item you got. We're not ideal for solar here in Fairfield County, but I don't have many other ways to generate new electricity. And this is one way. And by the way, the Chinese are doing it at half the cost that we are in the United States. There was a successful Green New Deal. Unfortunately, it wasn't the United States of America, it was in China. And there they're doing solar, they're doing EVs, they're doing a lot of things we tried to do and then took our eye off the ball. We'll follow up on that. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Governor. My name is Jennifer Johnson. I am a RTM District 9 representative, and I'm here to ask you a specific question about transportation in Southwest Connecticut. As we all know, traffic is an issue for us, as well as the air quality issues that come from that, and it goes into every part of our life. What I'm asking specifically is the way transportation is organized in Southwest Connecticut. Between Greenwich and New Haven, there are 7 different transit districts with 7 different entities that operate that. even on the Coastal Link, there are 5 different operators of the Coastal Link bus. So if you want to take the bus, you don't even know whether or not the bus is being operated by Greater Bridgeport or Milford Transit District or Norwalk Transit District. That's very different than New Haven and around New Haven and around Hartford, where you have a much more organized transportation system that benefits not only everybody, from the people who need to use paratransit services and disabled services to people who just want to get where they need to go. So my specific question is, what at the state level can you do, and are you doing, to consolidate and bring transportation together in a way that makes more sense for the people so they can move where they need to go?
So the Department of Transportation, that same guy I keep referencing, Garrett Eucalito, is trying to do just that. Right now, for rail service, we do all that in coordination with Metro North on a uniform basis. And the same thing for all the exits and egresses on I-95. We're an old state. That means we have more exits and more entrances per mile than just about any state in the country. You want to know why things are jammed up? Everybody says you need another lane or 2 on I-95. That's nonsense. But if you look at the heat map on I-95, it's those 5 or 6 choke points that really jam things up, and that's what Garrett is trying to fix. You're right, we have a lot of districts, especially when it comes to bus service and stuff, it's a complicated mess. But when it comes to speeding up I-95 and Metro North transportation, we're able to manage that. Your bigger point, could we do better if we can consolidate those districts? Yes, and we're working on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Governor. Ashley, I work for this library, so thanks for always coming here and hosting events here, and thanks for supporting libraries. I'm also a mom, I have a preschooler in Bridgeport, and I very eagerly joined my kids' PTA. And my first meeting, I found out that my daughter doesn't have access to a school librarian or a school library in Bridgeport, nor do the 36 public schools in Bridgeport because of the budget cuts. They cut all school libraries, and then they cut all school librarians. So I think in Bridgeport, the second largest school district in the state, for kids to not be able to have a foundation in media literacy, which is the ability to tell the truth from the false, nor be encouraged to engage in civics very early, which is the responsibility of school librarians. That's largely what they teach. They teach way more than just reading. What's the plan? How do we get school librarians back in there? Because it's only $1.1 million in the line item on the budget. And I understand there's a $32 million deficit, but to cut $1.1 million worth of one of the most important foundations of a kid's education just seems like a poor choice and sets a really bad precedent for our state.
Yeah. Thanks, Ashley. I mean, the quick answer is more funding by the state, but I don't go right to the quick answer. I can tell you I was a little disappointed in Bridgeport because coming out of COVID, they got a lot of federal money and they doubled the size of their central staff. And everybody got paid more, and there was less money going to the classrooms, less money going to libraries, more money going to overhead. I think I referenced that before. I got to work very closely with Bridgeport and a lot of our other school districts to make sure money's going to the libraries and classrooms and not elsewhere. Yeah. So it's going to be a little bit of tough love. We'll provide the resources for cities like Bridgeport, where I used to teach. I used to teach at Harding High. I love those kids. Yeah. But I got to make sure that money is going where it ought to go. And don't worry, we worship the libraries.
The education cost-sharing formula is very out of date in Bridgeport. They get the lowest amount spent per student in statewide, right? So I think we need to visit that cost-sharing formula because that really doesn't make sense. So thank you.
I mean, they get 10 times more than Westport, so they don't get the lowest amount per student, but it's based on need. And obviously Bridgeport has extraordinary needs.
Yes.
And we are taking, I'll be blunt, we're taking a look at what they call the education cost sharing formula, make sure it's allocated fairly, do that for the next 8 years. But I'm not somebody that says, let's just do more of the same and pay more for the same amount. I think, as I mentioned before, maybe special education, which is driving the cost of education in Bridgeport, and probably Westport as well. Maybe that's something where the state should take more of a lead. Rather than have 169 towns all trying to figure out how do they take care of those 15 or 150 special ed kids, there's a way that we can do that as a state and take care of them a lot more effectively. That's the type of thing we're thinking about.
Yeah, Bridgeport spends most of its money on transporting special needs kids out of town.
Exactly.
So the money goes to other towns.
We're going to create a regional solution for them. Better for the kids. You don't have that hour drive. Sometimes you're paying $150,000 to some Massachusetts institute. We can do a lot better than that.
But it's only $1.1 million, and you said you have a rainy day budget of $4 billion. So just reminding
you. You should be a legislator. I hear that all the time, but thank you.
Good morning. I'm Caroline DeLassa. I'm with In a Heartbeat Foundation. We're based in Connecticut. We're a nonprofit preventing death from sudden cardiac arrest. We do heart screenings in Connecticut on children, which is not a law anywhere. 23,000 children die in our country a year from sudden cardiac arrest. And we're able to detect 85% of that. Currently, there are no laws for that in Connecticut, though there is a bill up for that they're looking at. But in Connecticut, there are about 2,000 children who have a high likelihood of dying of sudden cardiac arrest. So the secondary part of prevention is having AEDs accessible in schools. And the law that currently exists has a quote that it's based on funding availability. So what are your thoughts on where the availability could come from within the Connecticut state budget so that an organization like ours could work with you, looking at the landscape of defibrillators and CPR training in cities like Bridgeport, towns like Westport, so that our children have a better chance at survival?
Yeah, I got most of that.
So there was a boy who had a cardiac arrest last month at Taft while practicing hockey, for example. He was resuscitated, and from what I understand, he still remains in the ICU. But we have about 2,000 children in our state who have a high likelihood of arresting due to a cardiac problem. And the infrastructure of AEDs in our schools is based on funding availability, not requirements. Where do you think that that budget could be found within the state's budget to be able to create a better landscape of life-saving devices in our school systems and on our sports fields?
So pulling the lens back, I can tell you what we are doing, doubling down on prevention and primary care. And that's everything from health clinics and virtually all of our schools coming out of COVID. That's more important than ever, not only in terms of screening and prevention in terms of cardiac, but also just in terms of mental health. We're just getting hit hard there. Making it easier and less expensive to become a nurse because we need more nurses. Anybody here want to be a nurse? We need more nurses, and trying to double down on that, make it less expensive and faster and there as well. In terms of individual programs and mandates to the schools, obviously schools don't want us to mandate it, have them pay for it. So they say, if you're going to mandate it, state, I want you to pay for it as well. And that's something we try and get the balance right on all the time. I can't tell you in terms of this particular thing, but I can tell you we're doing more health care in our schools and also, free lunches and breakfasts in our schools, make sure our kids get the very healthiest start in life.
So currently, we're the only organization that provides EKG screenings for children in the Northeast. It's not built into the health system, and it's going to be quite a while before it is. So we do heart screenings to find issues with kids, and it's hard to get into cities like Bridgeport because of the lack of infrastructure, part-time nurses, and et cetera. But the laws that require AEDs to be in schools and on fields are not funded by the state yet. Do you think that there might be an avenue for that to be funded, so an organization like ours could help inner city schools be prepared to respond to cardiac
I think we should
emergencies?
absolutely look at that. I'll get you in contact with Charlene Russell Tucker, who's our Commissioner of Education.
Thank you very much.
Where's Al? You're going to be busy.
We got time for 2 more questions.
Hello. Welcome, Governor Lamont. Hi, Matthew. My name is Lisa Penny-Couche. I am the founder and executive director of Rock the Walls. My background is in the music industry, and I would prefer to be doing that full time, but I have found myself right in the middle of the family court and an ongoing 13-year situation within the family court. I'm going to read just so I don't lose any points here. By the way, I am a Westport resident. I grew up in Stamford, so I'm a longtime Connecticut resident here. What I wanted to ask you about today is this: is the state that values oversight, how are taxpayer and federal funds flowing to family court appointed professionals while families are draining their own resources and in many cases losing their children? In 2020, after the disappearance and murder of Jennifer Dulos in New Canaan, I wrote to you and many others, Attorney General. I was then in my 6th year of family court. I'm now in my 13th. At this time, I couldn't understand how justice wasn't simply based on the facts and the truth that I presented. Last fall, I organized nearly 24 devastated mothers to meet with Jennifer Tooker, who was our previous select woman, our first select woman, until recently, and she's now running for comptroller. She was beyond shaken by what she heard from these women. Since then, many of these women are actually homeless, and many have lost their children to abusive exes. This is not uncommon around the country and in this state, very sadly. These are women who entered the system from stable lives, even in abusive situations, and are walking out without their children, without their homes, and without due process. And I don't say this lightly. Some are literally homeless. Many of them are actually from Westport and from this Fairfield County area. Most people are not aware that this has become a massive industry, and I'm talking about financially. We are beginning to understand that it's a $1 trillion industry in the country and actually billions in this state. So we're talking about taxpayers right here. It's moving through this system in Connecticut. I think everyone in this room would want to understand that better because taxpayer dollars are part of it, and most people don't realize that. So we're wondering why there's not money going to these other parts of the state that need funding. A lot of it is going directly to the family court industry, and it's a big one in this state. At the same time, judges with full immunity are making life-altering decisions about children and families, financially, emotionally, and in cases involving documented abuse. I do have a question, and I'm rounding up. This is without accountability. Stamford is one of the most financially concentrated family courts in the country. And these stories are emerging every single week. So this is my question, Governor. What is your administration doing right now to ensure real transparency and accountability in Connecticut's family courts? I know everyone in the government in the state is aware of it. I've written letters, but I know dozens more have. I get phone calls every day. And I would prefer to be running my nonprofit and helping and advocating, but I'm helping mothers and children. So I'm asking what your administration is doing specifically around this money and where it's going and how these decisions are being made and the accountability. Because at the end of the day, states like Arizona, Idaho, and even New York are beginning to open these conversations and are actually making changes to the way their judiciary and the family courts are being run. Like, we need a jury of our peers, not a judge who was a personal injury attorney who's now deciding whether my children are gonna have a home, are gonna have a mother, and are gonna have a future and an ability for a future, not 13 years into this. And I'm almost done. So I would invite you, along with Attorney General Tong, to sit here in this library with taxpayers, with mothers, and even with children who are brave enough to speak so that there is a true understanding of what is happening, because families deserve their homes and they deserve their children and accountability, and we do not need to be on state funds and help. And my very own, one of my 3 children is here with me today. I'm so proud that she is brave and proud to stand here with me.
Thank you for standing up and saying that. Chief Justice Mullins will get you in contact with the right person. We have family courts, they focus on this. They're not just a bunch of personal injury attorneys. They're folks who I think care deeply about family court and the issues there. And maybe you've had some other experiences, but we try and get that right. We engage hundreds of public defenders trying to protect folks who otherwise would not be able to pay for their own defense and make sure they have that opportunity. And most importantly, we're working doubly hard on what we can do to get involved sooner. You know, there's a whole debate right now. We have tens of thousands of kids that just don't go to school. And we lose contact with the kids and what's going on in those families. That's a debate we're having right up in the legislature right now. How can we make sure those family situations and those kids, we take care of them without intruding on parental rights? You should weigh in on these debates because that's what we're having right now. But our front line is taking care of kids in the schools, be an early radar system, Department of Children and Family, make sure they have follow-up to folks that may be at risk, and make sure our family courts aren't just, administer the law with heart. Administer the law with heart.
Yeah, and while I appreciate that, you know, Governor, this is a very serious situation. This is, you know, heart is great, but I have mothers calling me who have been full-time stay-at-home moms, who don't drink, who don't smoke, and literally have not seen their children in months or years. So there needs to be an overhaul, and there needs to be a very serious conversation. And I do invite you to come. I mean, there are women, there are some people in this room, but many of them are scared to come because they're standing up, and we don't have defense attorneys. We, most of our ex-spouses can afford attorneys, and most of us are pro se, which means we represent ourselves. So this is a bigger issue, and I invite you to have this conversation. It's actually taking a big toll on our taxpayers and federal money that is coming in from Washington.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. One last question. Do we have that one question? That was it? Anybody else want to ask one more question? If not, then I'll ask one more question. When you were last here, and you brought it up last time on this stage, you were greeting Keith Richards and giving him the key to the state. Last month, we had Wyclef Jean here playing on this stage. What kind of music do you like?
Well, I have a Grateful Dead belt, which I haven't taken off in 7 years. I've been to, 9 or 10 Rolling Stones concerts, and my kids are trying to plug me into the 21st century.
All right, well, we're having a concert here on May 2nd. Vanessa Collier, she's going to be on this stage, and if you wanted to come to that, we can certainly toss you a couple tickets, and you can enjoy some music right here in the Westport.
Hey, Westport, thank you so much for inviting me. I love this town. You represent the very best what's going on in this state. You can see the sort of balance we're trying to get, navigating through incredibly complicated times. I don't have the answer to every single one of these people's questions, but I'm going to get them an answer, and I think you know where we're trying to go. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much for coming, Governor. We appreciate it.